So that song is going to be in your head the rest of the week. You're welcome. How many of you remember the Brady Bunch? Yeah, right. Some of you are like, yeah. And some of you are like, what just happened? So the Brady Bunch, listen. So if you're too young to remember the Brady Bunch, first of all, congratulations for being so young. We're jealous of you. But second, and I know you're not going to believe this, that show right there, like in the early 70s, that was the hit show. If Netflix existed in the 1970s, you would have binge watched all of that in one weekend. And I can tell the way you're looking at me, you don't believe me, but you would have. Like, it was amazing. I grew up watching the Brady Bunch, reruns of the Brady Bunch, because I wasn't born until the year of 1980. But the only thing I remember about the show is that song, which I'll never get off my mind now, but also this phrase that was so common in the shows, like, Martha, Martha, Martha. Martha was one of the kids, and I don't know what she did to get scolded all the time, but it was just all the time. Marsha, 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 getting scolded all the time. I looked into the background of this show because I just have a really exciting life, and it's interesting how it came to be. In 1965, this producer named Sherwood Schwartz, and what an incredible name that is, he had successfully produced another hit show called Gilligan's Island. Anyone? Remember that? Yeah, like you're super excited about that one, okay? Gilligan's Island, and he was like, man, I gotta do another show that's gonna be really successful. And so he was reading the LA Times, and he read this stat that said that 30% of American families at the time included at least one child from a previous marriage or relationship. And it dawned on him that family structure, kind of like the step family structure, was not in entertainment world at all. It was not in pop culture. And he was like, we want to put that before our people because it's very, very common. So he came up with this idea of a dad and a mom, and they each came with 3 kids. And then you had the Brady Bunch. And for 6 seasons and 40 plus seasons of syndication, American families sat on the couch eating popcorn, watching the Brady Bunch. And it was awesome, and it just helped people understand the unique challenges and dynamics involved in a step family. Now, Carol Brady would be very, very mad at me for using the word step because she one time said this in one of the episodes. She said, the only steps in our house are the ones you walk on. Sorry, Carol. But listen, when I say step family, I'm not saying that in any kind of derogatory sense at all, of course, just acknowledging a very common family structure in our culture, one that I'm a part of, and one that many of you are a part of as well. I mean, think about it. In the 60s and 70s, if 30% of families had at least one child from a previous relationship or marriage, think what that number is now. It is just so common for so many of us. And so when I originally planned out this series, Family Matters, I thought, we've got to address this idea of the step family, remarriage, rebuilt family dynamic because it has some unique challenges and some unique difficulties that come along with it. We talk about this all the time. We need to be reminded of it all the time, that we have an enemy. We have a target on us. I hate to scare you, but it's true. There's a spiritual war going on. We have an enemy, and the Bible tells us exactly what he wants to do. He wants to steal and kill and destroy. His name is Satan. He doesn't want to be buddies with you. He doesn't want to hang out with you. He doesn't want to be like pals with you on social media. He wants to steal, kill, and destroy you and your family. And if you've seen lately in American culture, he is relentlessly attacking the family, and he's been wildly successful in doing so. I read one study that said this, I'm not sure how accurate, but it said this: 40% of first marriages end in divorce, 60% of second marriages end in divorce, 73% of third marriages end in divorce. So here's why we want to give some focused attention to this particular family dynamic that so many of us are part of. This is why. Satan would love to use your past division to create future division. That's what he wants to do. That's in his playbook. If he can look in your past and be like, oh, they got division already, I'm gonna use that and I'm gonna make more division. And I don't want that for you. And far more importantly, Jesus doesn't want that for you. See, Jesus gets a bad rap. People are like, oh, Jesus, he's like mean or bad or like wants to take something from, oh man, no. He has something for you. And he said really clearly what he has for you and for me. John 10:10, he said, I've come to give life and life to the fullest. If you're ever like, I wonder what Jesus wants for me, abundant life. Good life, full life, the best life. That's what he wants for you. He wants you and your entire family to experience a family dynamic that is marked by the fruit of the Holy Spirit, which is love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and gentleness and self-control, faithfulness. He wants that to be the mark of your family. And some of you are like, what, my family? Yeah, right, that's a pipe dream. But when you do family God's way, that can be the experience. Now, there's all kinds of different structures that make up what we're calling a rebuilt family or a step family. Sometimes there's just one child involved. Other times there's multiple children involved. Sometimes just one parent brings children into the family. Sometimes both parents bring children into the family. Sometimes all the kids live under the same roof with the parents. Sometimes they live under separate roofs, different houses, and then they split time on the weekends and they come and go. And sometimes there was a death involved that created the new marriage. Sometimes there was a divorce or divorces involved that created the new marriage. But in any case, there are some unique challenges that come with this family dynamic. We want to talk about that. And so when I first started preparing this particular message, I had called it first, it was like, well, all blended up. Because the phrase people oftentimes use to talk about such a family like the one I grew up in is a blended family. And I get why that phrase gets used, a blended family, but if you think about a blended family, that phrase, it can create some false impressions and some unrealistic expectations. So think about it this way. My lovely wife, Alex, and many of you know, she loves her blender. It's called a Ninja, like she loves it. And it's out all the time. And she, about once a week, maybe more, she will make a smoothie for her and the children. And you're like, well, why doesn't she make one for you? Because she says my favorite ingredients don't make good smoothies. Pepperoni pizza. So anyway, she'll make me one, but we should try those. So she gets out all the frozen food and all the fresh fruit and like yogurt and ice cream and like all these strange healthy ingredients and puts it inside of there, pushes the button down for like a few seconds and it like blends and does its magic. And it is so smooth and it is so good and it is so delightful for everyone because it's all blended up. And so if you use that phrase blend with a blended family, it forms the impression that, oh, it's easy. It's easy, just like get together, everyone gets all blended up and it's like so good and so delightful for everyone. Say I do, and we got a new blended family. And some of you are like, yeah, that's been my experience. If so, I am so happy for you. But some of us are like, not so much. And it's important to have realistic expectations or disillusionment settles in and it clouds your vision. So here's an analogy for you from the Bible. In the Old Testament, book of Exodus, we see God come to this leader named Moses. And God had seen his people, the Israelite nation, the Jewish nation, they had been living in slavery in Egypt for a very, very long time, like hundreds of years. And our God is a God that sees and he knows and he cares and he's a just God. And so he said, okay, I've heard your cries. I've seen your pleas. Like enough is enough. Like I'm going to set you free. So he goes to this guy named Moses, who's just like a shepherd, and he's like, hey, Moses, you're going to go to Pharaoh, the leader of Egypt, a very powerful man, very angry man. He may kill you on the spot, and you're going to go to Pharaoh and say, let God's people go. And Moses is like, nah, I'm good, I'm busy. And then God's like, no, Moses, you're going to go do this. So Moses goes to Pharaoh, and he says, Pharaoh, you need to let God's people go. And Pharaoh's like, no, because they're my slaves, and like my economy is booming, and they're free labor, and it's amazing, and I'm going to keep them. And God's like, all right. And so God sent one devastating plague after another, until finally Pharaoh relented. He's like, all right, whatever, like get out of here, Moses. Take these people, you and your God, go. It's easier to agree with God in the first place than to like deal with his wrath. And Pharaoh found out the hard way. So Moses begins leading the Israelite people out of this difficult, hard past and leading them into a future of freedom. And they think the days ahead are going to be the best of days. Well, you may know it didn't work out that way necessarily at first. As they're leaving, Pharaoh changed his mind. And he's like, why did I do that? Like, they were my economy. Now they're walking away. I'm going to get them back. And I'm going to send my deadly army to go make sure they come back whether they want to or not. So here's the Israelites traveling away towards freedom, thinking all their troubles are in the rearview mirror, and they look in the rearview mirror, and there's trouble in the rearview mirror. They see the army coming. They look backwards. They're like, uh-oh. They look forwards. They're uh-oh, because there's the Red Sea, and it feels like a dead end. They can't go around the Red Sea. They can't go through the Red Sea. They can't go over the Red Sea. They're like, we are stuck. And so some of them began lamenting, like, we should have just stayed in Egypt, man. Like, what in the world are we doing? We should have just stayed there. Life was better there. And what happened there, God ended up working in a powerful way, but they found that this new life that they had in mind, it wasn't going to be quite as easy and glamorous as they thought it was going to be. And this is a narrative analogy of what it can sometimes feel like in a remarriage, rebuilt family type setting, that we meet the new person, and you get the butterflies, and we fall in love, and we say I do, and at first everything's so good and so great and so calm, but sometimes the thrill of the new relationship can get overpowered and overshadowed by the difficulty and the challenge of the new relationships and the new dynamics involved, and you could get filled with fear and regret, thinking that, man, my future is gonna look like my past. And some of you, because of that disillusionment, in a moment of complete transparency, you would say, yeah, that's my experience. So maybe you're in your second marriage, maybe you're in your third marriage, and at first it was so good and it was so great. And now you feel like you're surrounded on all sides and you can't keep them happy, and then you're not happy. And again, it's like fear and regret, like, oh no, my future's gonna be just like my past. And to some of you though, it could be like, you're like, no, we're a rebuilt family and it's great. The dynamics are going well. We're all blended up and it's great. That's good. But in either case, there are some biblical principles to look at that'll help ensure that you experience the family dynamic of abundance and goodness that God wants you to experience. So as we address the unique challenges and difficulties that can come with this family structure, it's important to go back to the very beginning, the blueprint of the idea of family and marriage. Because remember, marriage was God's idea. See, what our culture does is, intentionally or not, is kind of like tries to hijack all of God's ideas and make it our own. Like, oh, this was our idea. So like marriage and money and sex and all these things, like, oh, that was our idea. So no, that was God's idea. And God's the one that knows how it works well. And so marriage was God's idea. And in fact, in the very beginning of the Bible, the book of Genesis, first book of the Bible, first couple of pages of the Bible, we see God performing the very first wedding ceremony in the Garden of Eden. He brings a man and a woman together, performs the ceremony. And we get to peek in, Genesis 2:19. Says, now the Lord God had formed out of the ground all the beasts of the field and all the birds of the air. He brought them to the man to see what he would name them, and whatever the man called each living creature, that was his name. So the man gave names to all the livestock, the bird of the air, and all the beasts of the field. But for Adam, that was the man, there was no suitable helper found. So the Lord God caused the man to fall into a deep sleep. And while he was sleeping, he took one of the man's ribs. That's a deep sleep, if someone could take a rib out. He took the man's ribs and closed up the place with flesh. Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man, and he brought her to the man. The man said, this is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and they'll become one flesh. Now that last verse, I'll read it again. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and they'll become one flesh. It's read at weddings all the time. It's a very familiar phrase, even if it's people that aren't even necessarily people of faith. That may be included in the ceremony, because like that's what you say at a wedding ceremony. And we get it. We're like, yeah, there's a man and a woman. They get married and they form this new family together. But there's actually a lot more being communicated there that we need to get to. It's out of verse 24 that we get a principle about marriage called leaving and cleaving. And it's a really common idea. We're like, yeah, we know what that means, that you get married and, the husband and wife, they leave and they fill up a U-Haul and they get an apartment or a condo, a new house, and they like move away and they leave. And sometimes, but in Genesis, so much more is being communicated when it talks about leaving. And so in Genesis 2, when it says to leave the father and mother, it's not talking about at that time, they pack up a U-Haul and they move to their own address. In fact, in that time in the biblical world, that time in history, that would have been very, very uncommon. They would have just instead stayed living in their parents' house. Apparently, it was very much like South Florida, where all kids just stay in their parents' house forever because it's so expensive. And so we're living in a biblical world here in West Palm, okay? So that's just like, so the leaving, that's not in the script. The leaving was not about moving to a new household. To leave the mother and father, what it meant is to transition the loyalty of the relationship from the mother and father to the spouse. So that can be challenging, that for the first couple of decades of life, your primary loyalty and relationship, it's to mom or dad, or mom or dad, and then you get married and suddenly that loyalty transitions to the spouse, and that leaving can be challenging. So you can get married first time or 10th time, whatever it is, and you can live 1,000 miles away from your mom and dad, and yet you realize as a married couple now that you have to develop your own traditions and your own rhythms and your own ideas about family and your own ideas about parenting, and you have to set your own boundaries, and it can be challenging. Sometimes it's actually more challenging for the parents that have been left behind, because there's a loss of control and there's a loss of identity, and there can be anger and resentment and anxiety that builds up within the family. Like, has anyone experienced that at all? Maybe not in this room, okay? But it's a very, very common thing. The leaving can be hard. So leaving is part of marriage. That's the commitment aspect. And then you have the cleaving. And that is the intimacy. And that oneness of the cleaving, the two coming together, it speaks of sexual intimacy, but it's so much more than that as well. So that's why in a wedding ceremony, not always, but often, you will see two separate candles that are lit. And they're burning in the background, and it's so serene, and it's so wonderful, and it's so beautiful. And those two candles represent the two families. It's like, oh. And then at some point during the ceremony, someone from those families will come and take the two candles and light a singular candle, and then they will blow out these separate candles over here. And what that represents is the two becoming one. The two are becoming one in marriage in every aspect of the word, emotionally and physically and sexually and spiritually. The two are becoming one. Now, this all sounds really, really simple. Like, yeah, we get it. The two become one, and husband and wife, they come together and they make one. As simple as it sounds, it is a lack of this understanding that can deteriorate and even destroy a rebuilt family when the new husband and wife do not remember that their relationship in the family is the primary relationship. The husband and wife. See, when God designed marriage, again, the idea was that a man and woman come together, they would get married, and they would have this time to develop this strong foundation upon which the family would one day be built. What I'm saying is there would be some time without children. I love kids. I have many kids. I am tired because of my kids. I'm not tired of my kids. Please don't misquote me, okay? Most days, I'm tired because of my kids. And so what God built in is this time without kids and all the extra energy and attention to be able to develop this strong foundation for the marriage. Listen to this law that was actually given to people in the Old Testament, the Bible. Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 5 says, if a man has recently married, he must not be sent to war or have any other duty laid on him. For 1 year, he is to be free to stay at home and bring happiness to the wife he is married. Now somehow I missed this memo when I got married. Because it said 1 year to stay at home. And what I did is my wife and I went on a 5-day honeymoon we couldn't afford, and then I went back to work. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make up for that. And I'm just letting y'all know I won't be here for the next 360 days because I've decided I'm gonna stay at home to bring happiness to my wife. And I was telling her this week about my plans, and she laughed and said, you're going back to work, okay? So she's like, that'll make me happy, just go. So, but God put this law in place. It's like, why? So that the husband and wife could have an opportunity to build a solid foundation upon which the family would then be built. He knew how important that primary relationship is. And here's the thing, in a rebuilt, remarriage, step-family situation, not all the time, but many times there's already children involved, and it doesn't create the same opportunity for that solid foundation to develop. And so think about this idea that in this new family dynamic, the parent-child relationships involved in the new family have more history. So the marital relationship, instead of being the strongest bond in the home, can be the weakest. Because there's history. But here's what we have to know. That in the family, if the primary relationship, which is supposed to be the husband and wife, if they're married, if there's a marriage, if that's not the primary relationship, the stage is set for division to take place. And so in the case of remarriage, think about this, and this is true about any marriage, by the way, the new spouse must come before the children. Understand, I did not say come instead of the children, but come before the children. And I know, I get it, like how uncomfortable that feels, like especially for like kids in the room, and that's been your dynamic. And again, that was my dynamic. And you're like, am I gonna be forgotten about? Am I just gonna be dismissed? Like I don't matter anymore? Like, no, not at all. In fact, there needs to be extreme intentionality to invest in and value the children within the appropriate structure of the marriage. And I'm always super transparent with you. I think I should be about my own life and family experiences. And I've told you several times in this series that my own mom and dad, they were divorced before I ever turned one. They both ended up getting remarried at different times. But I spent most of my childhood living with my mom and my stepdad. And they definitely followed this idea of making the marriage the primary relationship in the family. But I will tell you publicly, they did not do that before the children. They did that instead of the children. And so me and my sister, who lived in the home, and then his kids sometimes visited the home like every other weekend sometimes. But my sister and me, we were always in the home. We were emotionally betrayed and abandoned and left out and forgotten about. And not any joking at all, I still deal with therapy and counseling because of the pain and the heartache that emotional abandonment created. That is absolutely not what God has called you to do. It is not get tied up to your new spouse at the expense of your children. But before your children, yes. And so it's a very, very careful balance that we've got to develop here in this new family. And here's what I want you to understand, that the marriage, it's the primary relationship. And if everyone in the new family doesn't understand that the marriage is the primary relationship, I will tell you right now what will happen. I've experienced it. There will be an emotional tug of war for the attention and the affection of the biological parent involved. It'll be a tugging back and forth, back and forth, back and forth if everyone does not understand this marriage is the foundation of this family. And however, when everyone understands where the primary relationship is, then everyone can settle in and take a deep breath, and new relationships can be formed slowly but surely. Think about the new family this way. Step family, it's not a blender, it's more like a crock pot. That time and patience are required, but the result can be positive. And so just like in a first marriage, in remarriage, the marriage needs to be the primary relationship. That's simple biblical truth, and I want to give 3 applications, 2 to the parents, or 2 to the adults, and 1 to the kids. First one to the parents is this: you must parent together. You got to parent together. One of the landmines, again, remember we have this enemy that's out to get us. He wants to absolutely destroy your family, not someday, but today. And one of the landmines that he will lay is if one of the parents decides, they're my children, I'm gonna be the one that parents the children on my own. That's what I'm gonna do. And you're gonna stay over there, and it's gonna be my opinion, it's gonna be my rules, and it's gonna be my way, and it's gonna be my rhythm. I'm gonna parent the children, and you're just gonna be over there. Now, that can happen consciously, it can happen subconsciously, but I just wanna let you know, if that's the approach taken to parenting, you are giving a foothold to Satan to bust in. And he is so devious, and he's always searching for a crack, because he knows if there's a crack, I can slam through that wall and I can bring this entire thing down. And if you just say, I'm just gonna parent on my own, and I'm married to you and all that, but I'm just gonna parent on my own, we're gonna do our thing over here, but you just, division is just gonna happen, and destruction is possibly gonna happen to your family. Now, I want you to hear me saying this, that I know it's a very, very, very fine line. I've experienced it, I get it, because oftentimes the other biological parent is still involved, and other times there's another step parent on the other side of the relationship involved, so there's all these new voices. It is not an easy thing. I understand that. It is a very, very fine line. And yeah, the biological parent probably needs to have the primary voice. I would even say should have the primary voice, because it is their child. I understand all that, and discipline. You need to work through that. I get that. I'm just saying that the parenting, though, you got to even just cry out to God, say, God, help us figure this thing out to do it together. Because parenting has been designed to do it together, and if you do it together, God will honor that and help you develop this really healthy relationship. Another thing to the parents and adults is this: allegiance is no longer to the former spouse. Now, this probably sounds really obvious. You're like, yeah, I know my allegiance isn't to my former spouse, or they wouldn't be my former spouse, they'd be my current spouse, so I'd still be married to them. However, it's very common in this dynamic, occasionally at least, that there's a deeper connection to the former spouse than to the new spouse, simply because of how much time you spend together. Roots go deep. Even when they're unhealthy roots go deep. And so there can be this deeper sense of connection, which can lead to a at least subtle sense of allegiance to the former spouse in terms of desires and preferences and wants and needs in regards to the family. And so listen, I don't want to sound harsh with this, but if you're remarried, your allegiance is not to your former spouse. Your allegiance is to your new spouse. That's the way it needs to be. And I'll just tell you again, because I'm trying to help you not get on the landmines that are out there, that again, if this is not the case, if you let the allegiance be to the former spouse in any way, your new spouse, you know what's gonna happen? They're gonna feel marginalized, They're gonna feel minimized. They're gonna feel devalued. They're gonna be angry. And again, you're gonna be creating a crack in the foundation for the enemy to come busting through that situation. So if you are going to be guarding anyone's heart, it is not the heart of your former spouse. Now listen, be nice and be kind and be amicable to your former spouse, if at all possible. The Bible tells us, do everything you can to live at peace with people, because that will give an incredible model to your children. And by the way, they don't want to be caught in the mess. That was not their choice. So do your best to be peaceful and amicable with your former spouse, but you're not guarding their heart, you're guarding the heart of your new spouse. Now kids, let me talk to you for a moment. Those of you that are a part of this dynamic, whether you love the idea of your parent being married again or not, whether you love who they married again or not, your mom or your dad is married again, and it's very, very important that the two is allowed to be one. Now I know that if you're a child in this setting, that you didn't get to choose the circumstance. I understand that. And that's part of the struggle and the strife you deal with. Like, I didn't get to pick this. I didn't have a say in this, but you still have a role to play in this circumstance. And here it is. Do not do anything to divide your parent and their new spouse. And I'm saying this because there will be a temptation to do so. And I'm speaking from experience. There will be times you want to say things or do things or lash out in ways because of the incredible pain and mixed emotions you're experiencing, but just whatever you do, like, don't purposely say or do anything that would bring division within this new marriage. Unity is gonna be better for everyone. Ephesians 4:29 says, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only that which is helpful in building others up. Kids, I've walked the road, and I haven't always walked it well. And it isn't an easy road, but as a married man, I know just how important it is that there is a unifying bond within the marriage. And I'm telling you, it will be better for you in the long run if you allow this unity to maintain. And again, you may not like that you're married. You may wish, I wish I would have got married, but got married to someone else or whatever. Okay, probably keep that opinion to yourself, all right? But listen, I want you to hear me saying this. As difficult as these step relationships can be, they can also be beautiful and life-giving. I have a stepmom that came into my life when I was 8 years old, and I'm so thankful. My life would have never been the same without her. Tomorrow's her birthday. We're driving to Southwest Florida today to celebrate her. I am so, so thankful, and she is not a step anything. She is a mother to me, and I'm so, so thankful for it can be life-giving. Give it a chance. Give God an opportunity to work. And so this biblical principle is simple, it's profound, that the marriage needs to be the primary relationship within the family. If you'll just follow that one idea, let the marriage be the primary relationship, then everything else has an opportunity to fall into its appropriate place, as long as you allow Jesus to be in the middle of the marriage. See, we got to go here. I need to make one clarification that I've said, the marriage is the most important relationship. No, that's the most important human relationship, but the most important relationship is with God. Hear me do this, that if every single person in the family, if you would say, my most important relationship is with God first, then everyone in the family can live a healthier and holier and probably even happier experience if first your primary relationship is with God. Again, not instead of the children, but before the children. And so husbands and wives, this may sound contradictory, but listen, each other is not even your most important relationship. Jesus is first. Let Jesus be your king. Let Jesus be your Lord. Let Jesus be your lover. Let Jesus be your guide. Let Jesus be your shepherd. And not isolated, but then it'll pour out of you and you'll become a better father and a better spouse and a better friend and a better everything if Jesus is your primary relationship, and then the marriage can be your primary human relationship. Now, I want to finish up and just tell you this. As I've experienced myself, sometimes I remember these days and these feelings that if you're part of a rebuilt family in some way, because the enemy whispers lies, you can feel less than. Or you can feel maybe shame or embarrassment or think, my family's not like theirs. And I don't understand why our family had to play out this way. I don't understand why I had to be a part of this. It can be just a lot of difficult emotions. You may think, our family doesn't line up with, what God calls the model family. Ours isn't a model family. And I just want to say this to encourage you, and it'll be insightful for you. But listen, if you're not a model family, you're in really good company. And I don't say that to minimize God's plan for family, but here's what I want you to know. Literally, I've searched through the entire scripture from beginning to end, and I was able to count. I counted them, how many model families I found in the entire Bible. And you want to know how many model families in the whole Bible? 0. In the whole Bible. You're like, why am I reading nothing then? No, there's no model families in the whole Bible. And you're like, what about Adam and Eve? Let me tell you about Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve were the first family, and you're like, surely they wouldn't have messed it up. Oh yeah, they did. They had 2 kids named Cain and Abel, and let's just say they didn't play nicely together, okay? Like Cain hated Abel so much, he didn't like punch him or wrestle him, he murdered him, the Bible tells us. Noah's family, held in high esteem, of course. They were the only human family, or the only family at all, that were saved from the worldwide global flood. That God took Noah and his wife and their kids and the in-laws, and they're like, okay, all of you are gonna get on this big boat, this ark, you're gonna build it, and you're gonna survive the flood. It's like, oh, Noah's family, they must have been like the model family. Well, no, because when the flood subsided, see, the Bible tells us the grit and gritty of everyone's real lives, and the Bible tells us when the flood subsided, shortly thereafter, I don't know if it's like stress or anxiety or pressure or like boredom or whatever it was, we find Noah in a naked, drunken stupor in front of his own children. Feeling better about your family? Hopefully you're not doing that too. If so, we need to talk, all right? And listen, some of you are like, oh, that was me this weekend. No, so then you have Abraham. Let me tell you about Abraham, the father of faith. The Bible talks about him as father of faith. Abraham, he lied and said that his wife was actually his sister to spare his own life. Not to spare her life, but to spare his life. And he did that not just one time, he did that 2 times. He was dumb. Like she must not have slapped him hard enough the first time, so he did it again. And then Abram and Sarah, at first we know they weren't able to have children. They really struggled with infertility, and God promised, he said, you're gonna have a family and you're gonna have children, but they got impatient. And so Sarah was like, here, just take my maidservant Hagar and like have a baby with her. And instead of Abram being like, no, I'm not gonna do that, he's like, I'll do that. And so they went to the Holiday Inn together and had a night together. He impregnated her. They had a kid named Ishmael together. So now he's got a kid, but it's with the like mistress. And you can imagine yeah, that was a bad family dynamic going on there. Finally, Sarah was able to have a child according to God's promise. And after she had a child, she told Abraham, I think she told him, she's like, you're cutting your first son out of the will. There's Abraham's family. And then let me tell you about David. King David. The man the Bible talks about as being a man after God's own heart. His family was a disaster, starting with David. Like he set the pattern for the disaster in his family. This guy, David, when all the other valiant men were off at war, he's at home and he's a little bored one night. He sees a beautiful woman in the house next door. He calls her over. He wines her and dines her and romances her. He has an affair with her. And she ends up being with child, being impregnated by him. And he's like, oh, shoot. I've got to cover up this somehow, or this is not going to be good. So he's like, I know what I'll do. He had a premeditated plan in place. He murdered her husband. Later on in their life, one of his own sons raped his half-sister. And then later on in life, another one of his sons murdered his brother for raping his half-sister. How are you feeling about your family now? I love my family. So the whole Bible, there's not a single model family. There's not a single model family in this church. There's not a single model family in this room. We're all on even ground because we're all broken and we're messy and we're sinful and we're really good at just causing ruckus in our own lives. But the good news is that we have a God who's perfect and he is sinless and he is redemptive. And it means this, here's what I want you to know about your family, because we have so many family stories in this room, like we could spend the rest of our lives telling our family stories. And it'd kind of be fun if we did that. But no matter the path you walk to get to where you are right now, no matter how littered it is, no matter how wrecked it is, no matter how many struggles you've had and the high moments you've had as well, God can redeem that and do something good. It's never too late. He can still do something very, very good. Now, he's not gonna just erase past failures that we all have, but he will absolutely redeem past failures and do something good. See, our God is a master craftsman. He's a master artist. And I just believe that his best form of art he does is called mosaic. Some of you are familiar with mosaic artwork. It's where you take broken pieces of stone or metal or glass or wood and you piece it together to form something beautiful. Just look at some of these mosaic crafts. And here's the idea I want you to walk away with, that broken pieces, and we all have them, can become beautiful when they're placed in just the right way by just the right set of hands. Will you let God do it? Don't have the pride to say we don't have any brokenness in our life. Even if you're in your first marriage and and everyone's still all together, or if you're in your third or fourth marriage and it's so broken and custody is tough and difficult, and we all have broken pieces laying around in our lives, and if you will let God, He will bring those broken pieces and build something beautiful. Will it be easy? No. Will it be uncomfortable? Probably yes. Will you want to give up on what God is doing? Sometimes, yeah. You're like, God, can we work faster? And He's like, no. I'm going to work slowly because the outcome is going to be so beautiful, it's going to be worth it. The Bible tells us that He who began a good work in us will carry it on to its completion. And I just want to encourage you with that. I want you to know that even if it feels like, man, God's nowhere, like God's not doing anything with my family, nothing is improving, nothing is getting better. Hold on. Shh. Just give Him time. Give Him space and be patient and know that you are being worked on by the master craftsman. The same fingers that He is working on you with are the fingers that He traced out the beaches with. It's the same fingers that He painted the most beautiful sunset you've ever seen with. It's the same finger that He etched out the top of the Rocky Mountains and the depth of the Grand Canyon. And those fingers and hands He's using now to form you into something breathtakingly beautiful. Let's ask God to carry on that work. God, thank You for not giving up on us. We're really good at messing it all up. We're really good at taking matters in our own hands, and that doesn't go well. But thank You that You are so gracious, You are so kind, You are so compassionate, You are so merciful. You are such a lover of people that You've made, and Lord, it's never too late. None of us are too far gone. None of us have messed it up too much. You're like, oh, hold on, let me get in there. Let me get to work. God, give us a patience, give us a peace to allow You to do work of restoration that You're so good at. Lord, I know there's a lot of broken pieces littered on our paths and in this room, and yet I know it can all be redeemed and put together, and we're just so thankful, God, that You do that. Redeem us, God, renew us, restore us, and give us a sense of trust that You're working even when we don't see it, that You're working even when we don't feel it, that You are at work, and one day it's going to be a beautiful, beautiful piece that You have created. Thank You for these lovely people, God. I pray that they would be filled with courage and hope and joy and peace that is from You and You alone. You're an amazing, amazing God. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.